So the story is about Godfred Yeboah-Dame. He is the Attorney General, Minister for Justice. He used to be Deputy Attorney General, promoted. People are quite excited about his work. Now today he published something that is generating a lot of interest. The Auditor General issued his audit report, okay, the COVID-19 spending. And you know that had been a matter of controversy throughout the period because it's become a political issue. The National Democratic Congress, the NDC, has accused the MPP of squandering, that's the word they use, squandering COVID-19 money, whatever. Okay. Auditor General comes and publishes it. He publishes the same thing, well, not the same thing. He sort of publishes something that lends credence to the conversation that COVID-19 spending was either abused, mismanaged, or something like that. Okay. Now, the Attorney General then writes to him. So tonight we're going to walk you through what the Attorney General wrote to him. And then we will point out where the conflict is, and we will point you to a solution. We will also give you a bit of historical perspective on how the Attorney General's office has worked with the Auditor General's office. Okay? All right. So let's start. So this is the Auditor General. Nice man. Both men have spectacles on the. One went to Adom-Otchere. I'm not sure where this man went to. Maybe you should tell us. I think Premature College also. All right. So the theme from the Attorney General's presentation or the statement he made, the theme is about these three themes having been isolated by our people. Guess what? Both of them are AG. AG. So if they were in court, it would be AG versus AG. It will be reported in the Supreme Court of Ghana law reports. All right, let's get to the details so you understand that. So the Attorney General begins. He says, I refer to various discussions between your good self and me. So the two men have met regarding the effective implementation of reports of the Auditor General on audits into the public accounts of Ghana, particularly with regard to the issuance of disallowance and surcharge. Interesting paragraph, isn't it? So the two men had a conversation, they've met, and the Attorney General is writing post the meeting and saying that I refer to our meeting. Let's move on. He says the matters discussed have become more pertinent in view of the intense controversy generated by publication of the report on the special audit of the government of Ghana's COVID-19 transactions for the period March 2020 until June 2022 on the website of the Ghana Audit Service. Let's move on and see what else Attorney General says. He says, I find it compelling to lay out a few points which I hope will guide action to be taken after the preparation of your report. So paragraph 1 in the Attorney General's report, it says Article 1875 of the Constitution mandates the Auditor General to submit his report to Parliament, and in that report draw attention to any irregularities in the accounts audited. So the Attorney General is telling the Auditor General that, listen, you are mandated by the Constitution in Article 1875 that when you finish your work, you send your report to Parliament, and then you tell Parliament that I have observed infractions with Metro TV, with that. That's what you're supposed to say. That's what Attorney General is reminding him of, that in Article 1875 is there. Okay, what else is he saying? He says Section 16 of the Audit Service Act 2000-584 clearly indicates that reports on special audits and reviews as the one conducted in respect of the COVID-19 transactions are subject to the requirements of the Auditor General to submit the report to Parliament. He said that his Audit Service Act also asked him to submit it to Parliament. Let's move on. Article 1876 of the Constitution requires Parliament to debate the report of the Auditor General and appoint, where necessary and in the public interest, a committee to deal with any matters arising from it. So the Attorney General seems to be guiding us on a certain path. Let's see whether we are on the same page with him. He's saying to the Auditor General that, look, 1, Article 185, is it 187? 185, what is 1876? I think that's 1875. That says that when you're an Auditor General and you get your report, you send it to Parliament. Good? When you send the report to Parliament, Parliament ought to debate it. He also adds that in sending your report to Parliament, you have to tell Parliament that I have observed certain things in this particular Metro TV or Ghana Gas or GMPC document. You have to add that to Parliament so that you're appointing Parliament to infractions that you have observed. So that when Parliament sets out a Public Accounts Committee and they call GMPC, they tell GMPC that Auditor General says you have done this and that. Now, why didn't the Auditor General talk to GMPC before he did the work? The Auditor General writes to institutions to submit their documents. So your GMPC says, submit document for the purchase of 40,000 barrels of crude oil from Nigeria in March 1994. So they just submit it. Now he interrogates those documents and then he comes to a conclusion. That conclusion, he sends it to Parliament and says, Parliament, I have audited GMPC. I have seen that in buying 40,000 barrels of oil for this, they did that. I don't understand. I disagree with them. Have a look at it. You are the people's representative. Because the GMPC is spending the people's money. Parliament has oversight responsibility over the people's money. So the Auditor General is responsible for pointing out potential infractions, and it's actually given the power by the court to surcharge. But first of all, from the Constitution, from what Godfrey Dam is telling him, you need to tell Parliament what you have found. What else does he need to do? Let's move on. It says, this is repeated in section 21 of Act 584. Over the years, the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, PAC, seems to be the committee designated by Parliament to interrogate issues arising out of the Auditor General's report. Now, this is important because in the previous paragraph that we read, the Attorney General indicated from the Constitution that Parliament may appoint a committee to look at it. And he's saying that the Constitution said appoint a committee. It appears that Parliament have decided on that already. The Public Accounts Committee is that committee. Okay. It is only after satisfying the constitutional requirement of submitting the Auditor General's report to Parliament that the subsequent debate by the Parliament thereon and conclusions of work by the appropriate committee of Parliament, that the report of the Auditor General may be considered final and relevant action may be taken thereon. Still very interesting. The Attorney General is walking us on a path. Let's see whether we can follow. All right. It says 3. I observe that the report of the special audit on government COVID-19 transaction has been published on the website of the audit service. So the Attorney General is saying that, after telling him all what he's saying, he said that, by the way, you have made that infraction. He's telling him that there's just a nice way of saying that I have seen that you have sinned against the Constitution. We don't know whether the Attorney General's legal opinion is sustainable by the court or if it gets to court, but we are bringing it to you. I sort of understand what he's saying. I kind of agree with him. It's very clear. It's easy to agree with him because it's a constitutional provision. All right. He says that you have already published your COVID-19 report. It hasn't gone through the test. You see, it hasn't gone through the synthesis. 1, public audit report. Audit. 1 is audit. 2, complete your audit report. 3, submit it to the Speaker of Parliament. 4, Parliament must debate it. And a committee appointed to look at it. That committee will call everybody that you have mentioned and they will interview them. We see it happen all the time at Public Accounts Committee. And he's saying that if you haven't done that, that report is inconclusive. You cannot publish it. Whatever you have found is inconclusive. And that's the problem we used to have with Dom Level. No, then he's on radio. Yeah, he's on radio. He didn't even understand his work. That your work is to audit. Send it to Parliament. Write the infractions in the document to Parliament. Parliament will finish his work. Then they come back to you. Then you can say that, okay, I'm going to surcharge Paul Adom-Otchere for 300 cedis. I'm going to surcharge this person for that. But you don't pick the paper and you run to media and put it on websites so that all the media are picking it and it's headline news everywhere, which is nice. Headline news is great. I like headline news. Yeah, but that's not how to do it. We live in a country of laws, isn't it? Because that implicates people. Those people have companies. They have commercial interests. They may even have political interests. They have social interests. They may have religious interests. You raise the man's name and say that, oh, Reverend this, they say that the audit committee report says he did that. But then, he has not been asked any question yet. And Auditor General, the lawyers will tell you, means that you have to hear the other side. It's a fundamental cardinal principle of a trial. The Auditor General rule. So the Attorney General is saying that, Auditor, you cannot do that. You can't really do that. Okay, let's see what he says beyond that. In the light of the constitutional provisions pertaining to the duty of the Auditor General, after the preparation of audit report, I consider a publication of the COVID-19 audit report or indeed any audit report, particularly when same has not been either considered by Parliament or referred to a committee of Parliament, premature. Some people will say in the list, to say the list, premature. He's a very nice guy. He said it's premature. Please. You have just finished your work. It has gone to Parliament. Parliament hasn't debated it. And then it is on your website for everybody to see. And you are drawing conclusions, which you should not, because the Auditor General rule is there. Have you spoken to the person? You got their documents, but you haven't interrogated them. You are not given the authority to do that. That is for Parliament. Yours is to be like a whistleblower, then Parliament will take it up. So you don't pick it up and go and publish. That's what he's saying. Because it's COVID-19, because it's become political, people are going to take views on this matter differently. But at the end of the day, as we do as Ghanaians all the time, we will come back to the provisions of the Constitution and say amen to that one. That's how we build a society. It's not emotional. But this is COVID-19, and Samiji Mfi says that Ken Ofori-Atta has taken COVID-19 money, and Alfred Agbanya says that Napo, the Minister for Energy, has taken COVID-19 money education, and he used to spray some school, and they've been talking about it, so they are excited about the report. But the law is the law. And that's how we have to go. Because you see, if you are not careful, and we don't build a society of laws, we're going to have a problem. Somebody told me, somebody important last weekend told me that, he says, Paul, you know what we think in this country? We have a problem. We think that morality is what will occasion transformational change. It will not. Good person, good president, he's a good man, is what will bring the transformational change we're looking for. No. Transformational change occurs when you change the infrastructure on which the society runs. When you change the infrastructure on which the society runs. President Mahama or President Akufo-Addo or President Mills does not catch people on the street and put them in prison, not because he's a good man, but because the laws does not allow him to do that. So we build laws. We don't look for good men. And that's what people talk about. We don't need the morality. We need the transformation of the society. I always come back to the point. So when President Akufo-Addo says to transform our society, we need to elect our mayors, and we say we don't like it, I'm telling you, that day, one day, we'll come back to it and go and beg Akufo-Addo that, please, you were right, we were wrong. We beg you, Pa. When the president says, from my understanding, I think we should change this. And in changing that, in talking about that, he is taking power from himself. He is reducing his control over the executive. He has won the election. He has control over the executive. He says, I don't want to control the executive. Choose them. For DCs, we say, no, we don't want. Anyway, let me come back to the point. So the law is the law. So Godfrey Dame is talking about the law, isn't it? All right. 4, he says, I am mindful of the provision in section 23 of Act 548, which seems to mandate a publication of the report as soon as they have been presented to the Speaker to be laid before Parliament. Wait a minute, Auditor General. I know that in your Act 584, the Act requires you in the section 23 to publish. So I know that. He says, I'm mindful of that. What does the Attorney General think about that? Let's move on. He says, however, the laws governing the functions of the Auditor General ought to be construed as a whole. The constitutional duty of the Auditor General to submit his report to Parliament and Parliament's consequential obligation to debate and scrutinize same will be grossly prejudiced by a prior publication of the report. Very interesting. So the Attorney General says that, listen, Auditor General, I see that in your act, they say that you should publish. I've seen it. However, you should understand that your conduct as Auditor General should be read as a whole relating to all the various laws that speak about Auditor General. Fundamentally, 2 of them. The Constitution established the office of the Auditor General. Parliament put in an act to give expression to the constitutional provision. And so you have, so it's like Shraj. Shraj is provided for by the Constitution. There's an act of Parliament. It's like what used to be serious fraud office, now you call all of them. All of, the other one, where Charlotte Osei used to be. Those who educate people on elections. Oh, the name will come. Yes, NCC. Yes, National Commission for Civic Education. They are like that. They are provided for by the Constitution. Parliament gives an act to give it expression, isn't it? Okay. So now, Godfrey Dame is saying that you are provided, the Constitution is there, and then your act is there. You have to construe the prescriptions of your conduct as a whole from both the Constitution and the Act. Let's go on to see what else it says. The constitutional duty of the Auditor General to submit his report to Parliament and Parliament's consequential obligation to debate and scrutinize same would be prejudiced if you publish. It says that, so Section 23 says publish. Constitution says give it to Speaker and let Parliament debate it, okay? Now, if you proceed under Section 23 to publish, do you know what you are doing? Attorney General is asking him, do you know what you are doing? What you are doing is that you are prejudicing the reports, the publication. You are prejudicing the outcome because you have already published it. What you have published is your conclusions, short of Parliament's opinion and short of interrogating the people you are talking about or the institutions that you've made adverse findings against or adverse observations against. They have to be spoken with, shouldn't they? All right. So if you do what Section 23 says do, which is go and publish, you are prejudicing that, and you shouldn't do that, because you have to read Section 23 of 584 together with Article 187 of the 1992 Constitution. Together, that should guide your conduct as an Auditor General. That's what the Attorney General is saying. All right, let's move on. The proceedings, he said, of the Public Accounts Committee provide an opportunity for irregularities raised by the Auditor General to be interrogated and queried. Persons and institutions affected by the report receive a further hearing on the findings of the Auditor General's report and the proceedings of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament. That's true. That's correct. So people can go there and be dealt with, isn't it? Next, he says, a prior publication of the Auditor General's report completely undermines the purport and meaning of Article 187, 5, and 6 and should not be encouraged. Consequently, I advise a withdrawal of the reports on the government's COVID-19 transactions from your website before same has been debated by Parliament and considered by the appropriate committee of Parliament. Amen. That's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. We are building a great society in Ghana, aren't we? We should continue like that. Election after election every 4 years, but let's get the laws working correctly. Whether it's President A or President B, the laws must work correctly. That's what we need, isn't it? That's what he thinks the Auditor General should do. He should withdraw, and it's debated before he puts it up, because it's going to prejudice the outcome of a lot of things. You're going to call Honorable Adom-Otchere to the committee. You've already told people on your website that some COVID-19 money is lost. The committee will now ask him that, look, there's a discrepancy between what you gave us and what the Auditor General. If he's able to explain, then that's it. If he's not able to explain, the Auditor General is able to surcharge him. But you don't publish it before then, because he just might be able to explain. Then what happens? People already think he's a thief. He's working, he goes to visit his child at Duan Secondary School, and the children are calling him thief, because they saw his photograph in some newspaper that says, they do cartoon and they say thief. That's what they do these days. So you can't do that, really. It prejudices the outcome, isn't it? All right. It is only through due process, particularly the observance of the processes stated above, that we can realize the true import and effect of Article 187 of the Constitution. Let's move on. It says, there ought to be enhanced cooperation between the Audit Service and the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice. These two institutions are at the forefront of the quest for public accountability, probity, the rule of law, and the rooting out of corruption and malpractices in Ghana, and therefore are left with no option but to collaborate. Okay, he's talking about the important collaboration between the Attorney General's office and the Auditor General's office. In this regard, he says, I have set up a special team in my ministry, jointly headed by the Solicitor General and the Director of Public Prosecutions, specifically charged with coordinating with your outfit in order to promptly act in accordance with law on established irregularities contained in the Auditor General's report. So the Attorney General, I like him for that. He has identified a problem. He has given his opinion, advice about the problem, and he's offering a solution to the problem. That's very important. Young people should understand that. You identify a problem, you find solutions to it, and then you deal with it, isn't it? Okay, so he says the solution is that he has set up a committee in his office, and they're going to look at it. I'm rushing because I see my time is running up. I would appreciate if you could set up a similar team to work with my office. Please accept the assurances of my highest consideration. So in this document, we also isolated what the Attorney General has done in the document. So in this document, Attorney General chronicles the history of cooperation between himself and the Auditor General. He's not very happy with the cooperation so far. Then in our point 2 of the summary, he emphasizes that at various times in the past, the Attorney General Gloria Ekufu wrote to the Auditor General Domlevo, but Domlevo ignored the Attorney General's advice. So that is urging the new Attorney General that my predecessor, Gloria, tried to cooperate with Domlevo. We know that Domlevo doesn't cooperate with people except his friends. So Domlevo didn't agree. But he's urging him that you and I cannot do that. That's the old regime. Let's get it running. I want to cooperate with you. Please cooperate with me. Let's get the work done. Let's solve the problem. I like that. I like that spirit. Very, very good. Then he said he ended on the note that there is the need to deepen the collaboration between the Attorney General and Auditor General's reports. Yes, certainly there needs to be a deepening of that. Now, the framers of the Constitution were aware that we have so many laws in Ghana, and there could be laws that are competing with each other. So they put Article 11, they said the laws of Ghana, wherever you have a difficulty, come here. It says the laws of Ghana shall comprise A, the 1992 Constitution, B is Parliament. So Constitution is first, and Parliament acts are next after that. So the Constitution takes supreme, not just there, but also in Article 2 of the Constitution, which says that the Constitution shall be the fundamental law of the land, and any law found to be inconsistent with the Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be null and void. If Kofi Kumadu taught you constitutional law, you can recite this phrase any day or you wake up. It's Article 2 of the Constitution. This Constitution shall be the fundamental law of the land. Any law found to be inconsistent with this Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be null and void. So that also works. We don't say that the 584 is inconsistent with the Constitution as such. That's not in being inconsistent, because they are arriving at similar conclusions. It's a competing law. And when laws are competing, Article 11 will duly resolve it.